Hey guys, welcome to today's next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video. We're going to be doing the arcade game, which I actually loved playing, both on the system and in the arcade. The arcade was a great game. Like, I had so much fun with some friends for the longest time. The music was great, everything was good, the story, the gameplay. I can't remember how the difference on the system it is. Like, you can tell it's a little slower from what I can remember on the arcade. But all in all, like, it's a great port. Like, they did a good job of really bringing the arcade. Like, a lot of times you get the arcade games and they just, it's like, why bother? Because they all usually kind of suck. But this one was so good as far as what it was in the arcade compared to what it is at home. And it really was great bringing it right into what you had, you know? Like, you didn't get the 4-player thing like you would in the arcade. Not a big deal. I don't think this was multi-tappable. Like, they did have the games that allowed you to play 4 players. That wasn't unheard of. But I don't think this one had it. I think this one was still stayed as a 2-player. We got a little FromSoft going on there with random balls falling down the stairs. Ah, I knew that was going to happen. I was trying to jump in and out of that, but it didn't happen. That was always one of the nuisances in these kind of games, is the guys that have the ranged attacks. And then, you know, having spots like that where you can't really do the jumping attack and then, like, closing the gap on them, because you ran right into the, as we saw multiple times, the big old balls of death. So you're at the mercy. And it'd be nice if the balls hit them too. A little Pizza Hut product placement. I do wish there was a little bit more variety. But I do get it. I understand it. And I mean, it fits. Like, the whole thing is we fight tons of foot soldiers. Like, that's just what it is. Ah! Little bastards. Come on, we had him trapped there. Fuckers are quick. Alright, who's our first boss? Is it, Bebop? Ah. Well, that was pretty bad, but we got there at least. But yeah, I can't tell you how much time and quarters, time, and thumbskin that I spent playing this game. If I remember correctly, yeah. I am not doing well on getting that backhand off. That one right there. Like, that's the huge hit that he does. You can actually knock this back again. I believe you can hit him back with it. But we missed horribly on that one. I mean, this still holds up well. It's a little disappointing, like I said, the repetitiveness of everything. Even as far as beat-em-ups go and these kind of games, like, I mean, they're mixing things up. We got firecrackers now and all that. But, you know, it's like the same thing. We got the same purple dudes over and over, which is every one of these games. Like, this is nothing new. I think just as we mature for gaming and everything else, I don't know, something in your head clicks to where it's like you kind of start getting annoyed with the complete, like, just constant same thing. And you just crave more variety, more enemies, more different things, like just something different, you know? That was still also like a huge thing when I play RPGs. Like, I get it and I understand all that stuff, but it's like when you keep fighting the groups of 6 goblins or 6 wolves and all that, like Final Fantasy, you know, it gets monotonous at times, especially when you're farming experience and stuff and it's just the same battle over and over and over again. Like, it's really hard to do anything else in gaming, you know? Like, you can only do so much regardless of what system it is. You can't just have non-stop a different enemy in every single spot, you know? It just doesn't happen, even nowadays. But it just, like... There's a certain point where this stuff kind of starts becoming so monotonous that you start kind of lulling into, like, partial boredom. Even though you're having a good time, but just, like, mentally or whatever, you kind of check out a little bit. Because, you know, it's like, okay, yep. Next group of 4 enemies. Let's go. Alright, we're moving. And 4 enemies. Like, there's nothing that really breaks up the monotonous of it, for the most part, you know? Like, occasionally you have that thing where you have a staircase that drops balls. Great, there. But all in all, most of the time you have this, which is the game. You can't really complain. It's still a wonderful game, but just as we mature, like as kids, you don't care. You're just like, oh, this is fun, and you're just having a good time pummeling the hell out of the same 3 enemies over and over and over again. And it doesn't change, and you don't care. But I think as we mature, and partially get kind of spoiled as gamers too, and I believe you could fall down that hole. I believe as we mature and kind of just get spoiled a little bit, the monotony becomes a little... Like, even in these boss fights, where it's kind of the exact same thing. It's the same giant guy with a gun that as you go to attack him, counters your attack. With, like, the punch, the shooting. It's kind of the same thing. Bebop and Rocksteady kind of do go hand in hand. So, again, all this stuff is really understandable. And in no way, shape, or form is it really a complaint. But it's just something you notice, and just something to be brought to mind, where the more you play stuff like this and going back to it, the more you will, at least for me personally, maybe not for everybody, but find that stuff like this does become a slight monotonous rut and starts to lose a little charm. It still very holds up. It's still very nostalgic. It is still very much fun, and I still enjoy it. But as I'm playing it, I am noticing that, you know, you do start to find yourself kind of lulling into this sense of, okay, we're just going to do this again. We're just going to do this again. And you start finding these little things where you're having fun, and then you're kind of bored of it. And you're having fun, and you're kind of bored of it. And I think that's been a huge thing in gaming throughout history, really. Because, again, there's only so much anyone could do at any given moment. And creating the constant stream of something different is insane and is preposterous. Especially in games like this, where you have this long, drawn-out thing for all these beat-em-ups. That's kind of what you have to do. You can't just have something different and changing everything every frame. It becomes the game just bloats so much you cannot really confine it into what it is, which is like the 8-bit system and the 16-bit and all that stuff. Yeah, nowadays we can, and they do a lot better, especially in like a lot of the open world and everything. But like to a point, like there's only so much you're gonna do ever at any given time, and you understand that. But even though you know it in your heart, your head, and everything else, you still can't help but to feel that way after a little while, where you're just like, okay, we're doing this some more, and you kind of like, you're still enjoying it, you're still wanting to play, but you're also getting a little bored of it, and it makes it kind of hard to really get really into the games. At least from my point of view, from the way I feel about it. I have fun with it, but it's like you have some fun, you do some stuff, and then you're like, okay, we're good now. We're going to move on to the next thing. And it's almost like it promotes a little ADHD to where you're like, okay, moving on to the next shiny because we've done this and it's getting repetitive, so let's move on. So, and then we're going to get to the next repetitive thing, and then we're going to move on again. So that's a little unfortunate, especially nowadays where we have access to all these. When this was like your only game, like you were down for just going to town on this game for months on end, beating it, perfecting it. But now that you can jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, like it's a little harder to maintain your focus and your drive and your desire to keep playing the one game because of the monotonous of it, that you just kind of do want to branch out. And I even find that in new games, especially a lot of these open world games where it's just filler and it's the same fetch quest here, fetch quest there, where it's, yeah, you're kind of going all over the place, but you're doing the same thing. And after a while, that really loses its luster no matter how big the game is, no matter how big the map is, and it just boils down to the same boring thing. And half the games, I have like, I have 3 or 4 Far Cries and a couple of the other games, and I never wind up finishing them because they just become so monotonous and boring, even though it's this big old wide open world of the same goddamn shit. And that's a problem, especially nowadays, where you got to be able to condense it a little bit and actually do stuff that you want to do. But anyways, that's my rant for today, guys. Thanks so much for sitting through it and joining me, and we'll see you next time. You guys have a wonderful day.